Hey everyone. I believe that this is going to be the last specifically Jack Murphy centric video that I will make. I have close to 8 or 9 hours of content already on my channel now exposing the deepest of the issues that exist that I have found. I've shown everything that I can find and everything that other people have helped me find. But I think there's one last thing to address, and I want to put it into its appropriate cultural context. Before I get into this, I want everyone to be aware that what I'm about to read is extremely graphic and it may be disturbing to some people, particularly those of you who may have suffered from sexual abuse in the past, with whom I have a lot of empathy. So, with that being said, the topic of this video is in the title. I'm going to read Jack Murphy's article that fetishizes rape and discuss what it means culturally within the context of healthy relationships between adults. So, without any further ado, I have the article pulled up. I am not going to put it on screen. I'm going to read it and talk about it. And then I will link it on my Twitter. So you can go follow me on Twitter at SeattleiteJ, and it will be on there. You can go read it yourself. But I am very reticent to have this on screen. Let's start here. So the article is called Do Feminists Have Rape Fantasies? And essentially he begins the article by saying this. So I'm just going to read the entire article and stop and comment on it as I go. This is from the article. The root of feminist unhappiness these days is their stubborn defiance of desires innate to their DNA. Their insistence of idealizing the male at the expense of the female has led to the breakdown of the sexual marketplace, fall of marriage, and rise of divorce. These trends mirror declining female happiness over the course of several decades. Feminism built an unsolvable dichotomy within women, resulting in ongoing internal torture. Much like a transgender, they are trapped acting a way that doesn't reflect who they are on the inside. Again, I'm reading this from the article. These are not my words. This is not my thought. As a group, they demonize the essence of their nature, devaluing roles like mother and wife, and in its place have jointly decided that man's work and a man's world were the ideals. They ironically hoisted and idealized the image of man triumphantly as the goal of their revolution. Rather than champion their own comparative advantages, they set impossible standards to achieve. Now that they must always act like men, they are confused when confronted with the dynamics of sex. When we take off our clothes, the differences are obvious. When our bodies come together, the differences are even more pronounced. What stimulates arousal doesn't seem to line up with how feminists want to shape the world. What feminists deny is that healthy, vigorous sex can and does include violence and aggression. Again, this is from the article. These are not my words. These are not my ideas. Men have a natural tendency toward dominance and women to passivity and submission. For a feminist who has rejected polarity and embraced sameness, this presents a paradox. The cognitive dissonance between her chosen dogma and the urge to get choked during sex is painful. I assure you, behind even the most ardent feminist facade is a deep desire to be dominated and even degraded. Their constant refrains otherwise belie an underlying self-hate. But fear not, there is a solution. And this is the solution that he gives. Rape. Not quite rape, but rape. The kind of rape a man who loves his girl commits. Rape conducted under the auspices of consent. Rape safe enough to allow the feminist to begin to claw her way back from the insanity. You see, rape is the best therapy for the problem. Feminists need rape. When a man and woman tap into the power of rape, they connect to the fundamental truth about our two sexes. We can kill you. So I'm going to stop here. Obviously, to me, very, very obviously, this is not about male and female dynamics as much as it is about power. This reads in my mind as the words of someone who wants to dominate and be in control of another person in every conceivable way. And that is disturbing to me. In fact, and especially using the term rape. So it's clear here that what he's saying, he's not meaning, real specific rape. He's endorsing something like extremely rough and one-sided. I guess I shouldn't say one-sided, like sex with really strong power dynamics within it. So in my mind, this is a fetishization of violence and of power. And it seems to me that the idea coming across in this article, and this is how it seems to me. I'm not saying that this is Jack's belief himself. What it seems like to me is that he is his understanding of what it is to be male is to be violent. And I think that that's at best a very deep misunderstanding of maleness or manliness, masculinity, very deep misunderstanding of masculinity, or it's something far more sinister. It's something more along the lines of psychopathy. So, or sociopathy. Which one is which? I think sociopathy means you have no empathy, and I think that's the one that I'm leaning towards. All right, back to the article. But we don't want to kill you, nor do we want others to. We want to set up a system to institutionalize this concession and the many others that followed. In just a few thousand years, men find themselves apologizing for spreading their legs on the train. Some have even been brainwashed to join in emasculating themselves to the point of effectively being neutered. So, again, what he's referring to here, he's saying, we don't want to kill you nor do others, but we want to set up a system to institutionalize this concession. What that means is that he's saying that men want to keep it on the forefront of a woman's mind that we can kill you. And women want men to do that. That's what, in my interpretation of these last couple of sentences, that's what he's saying here. And I think that's deeply, deeply sociopathic and inaccurate in my mind. I read part of this article on stream last night, and the women, there were several women in the chat, and they were fairly disgusted by this, and that's what prompted me to especially speak about this in particular. The farther away you are as a potential rapist, the less desirable you become to a purely physical level, Jack says. Become on a purely physical level. So essentially, if you're not a potential rapist, then you're not desirable to a woman. That's the point of view being articulated here in this article. When you rape a woman, you remind her of the man she wishes you were. They adore you for it. Feminists especially. In fact, it saves their lives. That right there, that is... those words are extremely dangerous, because at this point, we're not drawing a distinction between actual rape and what Jack is categorizing as rape. He's simply saying these words. When you rape a woman, you remind her of the man she wishes you were. They adore you for it. Feminists especially. In fact, it saves their lives. I can't imagine thinking such a crass and disgusting thing, and especially putting it out in public where other people will read it, and then saying this is what makes you an alpha male. This is disturbing. He continues, it is our duty as men to save feminists from themselves. Therefore, I am offering rape to feminists as an olive branch. Let's come together over consensual rape and melt away our disputes through tear-driven mascara and matted hair. If that sentence doesn't make you shudder, I think that you're very lacking in empathy. It's very disturbing. This article is very disturbing. He continues, this primal energy is like a lighthouse signaling from shore, the storm clouds of feminism obscuring our common solution. We must zero in on this light and follow it to the truth. The problem we face is that many feminists don't believe consensual acts between adults are okay. Some even think that those consenting to rape and violent sex acts are suffering from a veritable sexual Stockholm syndrome where the women are sexually terrorized. Their writers and thought leaders demonize consensual acts as a disguise for the act of sexually forcing a woman against her will. I do not want to touch this feminist debate right now, but I will say I think he's very wrong about this. I mean, I'm sure there are some feminists out there who make things a lot bigger than they are, or, the whole consent thing was a huge topic like back in 2015. That's probably the case. But at the same time, the way that he's framing this is very disturbing and creepy to me. And I really want these words to be out there, and because I'm about to interpret this, so we'll get there in a second. So then there's a photo of a man's hand choking a woman, and it says, choke your way to the cure. or for replicating the very masculine power dynamics used to perpetuate woman's oppression, and because rough sex is reinforcing the legitimacy of power imbalances outside the bedroom, and so forth. I think that he is perpetuating power imbalances outside the bedroom, but I don't think it's because it's necessarily through sex that he's doing it. I think that it's because the personality is power craving. I believe that this is an individual who craves power. He wants to bring that into every realm of his life, including the bedroom. These writers are onto something, he continues. They know that the truth between our sexes lies in the inescapable reality that women wish to submit to a worthy man, and men of all walks wish to have a submissive woman. Those writers know if women embraced violent sex and submission, first in the confines of the bedroom, it could very well spread to the remainder of the house, like the kitchen, for example, and they can't have that happening. Yikes. No, they must keep the shroud over the eyes of their fellow women, shaming them into thinking submission is wrong, telling them that men who want to dominate you are evil, perpetuating not only their fear-based misandry, but creating miserable sexual beings deprived of their very nature. Where are the Caitlyn Jenners out there? Who is brave enough to admit that they are submissives trapped in the web of artificial mores and expectations that force them to be dominant? Who will be brave enough to step forth and accept who they really are? The suffering has gone on long enough. Okay, so that's the end of the article. And I want to put into perspective right here this last thing that he's talking about. He's talking about dominance and submission. And in a certain perspective, I think he's right that in some relationships, the submissive side and the dominant side come together. But I think what he's done is he's mischaracterized that as a power imbalance, whereas the basis of relationships with dominance and submission are based on trust when they're performed in what could be described as a clinically healthy way. So if you're in a relationship that is meant to be healthy and there are those dynamics, then it should be based on trust and not power. And once you start bringing the power aspect into it, I think that you're flirting with something very, very dangerous, which is the fetishization of violence and power. So let me put this into my perspective and give a final thought. As I've said, from my understanding of the psychologist between dominance and submission, the key emotion or feeling is meant to be trust, not power, not lust, nothing else. This whole article just reeks of violence and power to me. I think that this is a result of a society that consistently, more and more, fetishizes violence and power. For example, a dozen years ago, the whole, daddy king thing, that was not on the radar. That wasn't a mainstream idea whatsoever. And now it's become so commonplace that you see, 13, 14-year-olds on TikTok talking about it as if this is something that they could possibly understand at any level. It's become a more accepted thing to introduce power dynamics into the sexual aspect of relationships, which again, I'm not interested in criticizing like sexual fetishes or kinks. Consenting adults can do what they want to do, but I also believe that something like violence or power shouldn't really be sexualized. I think that can be damaging to people. So of course there might be exceptions to this rule, but from my perspective, someone may be done severe and permanent damage by being manipulated into another person's rape fantasy in a sexual relationship. Speaking as a former victim of rape and sexual abuse, people who have been victims in the past are often easily manipulated and psychologically vulnerable, as well as hypersexualized. So I know this because these are demons that I have battled in the past through years of processing and understanding myself and what abuse did to my psyche. People in that headspace can be permanently damaged by this behavior, and I think the risk is not worth the reward of just a brief and fleeting sexual pleasure. So here's the final point with all of this. The cuckold article and this article both seem to be obsessed with the same thing, the fetishization of power. This is a huge red flag to me, but I don't think that Jack Murphy is alone in endorsing this type of behavior. I think that this is a societal trend brought on by excessive sexualization and the availability of more and more free pornography. Look, we all know that porn is damaging to people long term. The studies are in. We know this. That much is clear, especially to young people. This is a fact that's actually indisputable. Like that is what we've discovered. The clinical psychology is in agreement on this. However, I want to stress consenting adults can do as they please, but I've been on the internet long enough to know that most people, and you can see this on Reddits, you can see this on pretty much any message boards, people who watch porn a lot, they will openly say that the more they watch, the more crazy stuff they have to watch to get off, and that forces it's kind of like the Overton window of sexuality, right? So it gets pushed farther and farther in some direction. I think that this fetishization of violence is a natural consequence of this trend. So it's a cultural issue, not a Jack Murphy issue. And I believe that wholeheartedly. As I said before so many times over the last few days, this has never been about Jack Murphy the person to me. It's never been about that. This has always been about the cultural and societal implications of this entire debacle. Specifically, a person who, in my opinion, is not who he says he is. He's purporting to be an expert on masculinity as a grift to make money. And then all of the influence and pull that he's been directing into insane cult-like behavior. By the way, go see the stream from last night if you want to understand a little bit more about the cult-like stuff. We touched on that in the file dump. Taking advantage of a certain group of people is exactly what I think was happening until Murphy's past caught up with him. So let's move on from Jack Murphy. Let's keep our eyes focused on the bigger picture and do good for one another. And I think that's the overall message that needs to be heard about this. You can follow me on Twitter at SeattleiteJ. That's where I'm going to share this article. So if you want to take a look at it yourself, it'll be there. Like and comment on the video if you want to. I'm excited to hear people's thoughts. I've been getting lots and lots of comments, and I absolutely love interacting with you guys. Subscribe if you feel like it. I will be releasing another video later today on the implications of all of the response from big personalities to this saga and what the next steps are, in my opinion, for those people who are disenfranchised from larger personalities in the cultural and political space. I'll also be streaming tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time, so if you want to tune in, I want to talk to you. So till next time, I'll see you later.